Did you ever investigate a mob organization where Uncle Sal and everybody told the same lie, but the person at the top didn't know about it?
No. This is classic kind of criminal enterprise behavior, right? You have a strong leader who rules by force of will and personality, who demands unquestioned loyalty from those people around him. That is an act of self-preservation. That leader knows that he's got to have that loyalty. He's got to be sure that people are on his side. If you're not on his side, you're against him. And if you don't have that, it's a threat to his very existence, his or her very existence. Those are some of the same traits that I saw interacting with the president and the folks in his administration, some of them.
Unmentioned thing he's talking about there, that would also be the architecture of a potential RICO charge, as has been mentioned. More there from the former FBI acting director, Andrew McCabe, with Nicole Wallace during that interview, 4 p.m. Eastern time, here in the studio today. McCabe's book, again, has been out for 2 days. His book tour just started on Sunday night, and his comments are generating so many headlines. Earlier tonight, McCabe told Chris Hayes it's possible Donald Trump has been compromised by Russia. Hours earlier, the former assistant director for counterintelligence at the FBI, Frank Figliuzzi, said McCabe was playing chess at the highest level during his time on the inside with his handling of the Russia investigation.
Between your conversation with Andy and ours in the green room with Andy, we've learned something. We've learned.
I love it when that happens.
Yeah, he didn't open a separate case on the president. He added the president to the already predicated, already long existing case on Russia meddling with the campaign. Why is that important? That case was a full counterintelligence investigation. What does that mean? You have specific and articulable facts that someone is or may be an agent of a foreign power. He felt he had enough to add Trump's name to that existing case. That's big news.
That was a genuine moment on that show this afternoon. And back with us on the broadcast tonight, we're pleased to have former CIA Director John Brennan, also happens to be our senior national security and intelligence analyst. Director Brennan, Mr. McCabe is out there talking about our president as a possible Russian asset. Some people watching, no doubt, hear this and chalk it up to crazy talk, and perhaps they have heard the attacks on Mr. McCabe from conservative media, from the president. I wanted to get your take on the possibility that our president is a Russian asset.
Well, I worked closely with Andy McCabe for several years, and he always impressed me as a very serious, hardworking, and competent senior official of the FBI. And I do think he handled the investigation very adeptly and carefully. And if he decided at that point of the ongoing investigation that he needed to include Donald Trump as a potential target for the counterintelligence investigation, I do believe that there was a sufficient basis. Again, based on my knowledge of Andy McCabe, he wouldn't do something like that without a sufficient predicate. Now, I don't know what has happened in that investigation since I left government in January of 2017, but I know that there was a lot of information that was available while I was there about Russian engagement in the interference in the 2016 election, and also, a lot of questions about Mr. Trump's actions, his statements, and his behavior, and those around him. So I do hope that Bob Mueller is going to bring this to conclusion and let us know exactly what the evidence has been able to uncover about Russian engagement, as well as the role of U.S. persons in this intrigue.
So Andy McCabe, in real time, on the air and in the green room in this building today, kind of added to what we know. He said publicly and to Frank Figliuzzi that he, in effect, added Donald Trump to an already open and bulging file of a counterintelligence investigation based on things that during the Trump campaign looked hinky to investigators and not thoroughly American, with this many Russians crawling around. So a technical question to you. When Donald Trump gets added to that investigation, and that means everyone in his orbit, I know you're not going to give up sources and methods, how much of someone's life can you then read through and listen to if they are worth investigating?
Well, counterintelligence investigations are done very carefully and thoroughly. And you want to make sure that you have access to whatever information might give you some insights into what might be going on. So from the standpoint of financial records, past activities, whether it be in business or government, the individuals that you interact with. And I don't know what was initiated then at that point in terms of any type of past information as well as of ongoing information. So it would be up to the FBI officials that would be responsible for the case to decide how extensive and how deep that investigation should go.
I want to play you a clip from Mr. McCabe. At the end of this, he poses a question which we'll then pose to you.
Just ask yourself, have we ever had an administration that had this volume of connections with our most considerable, most formidable adversary and gone to such extents to cover those connections up? These are things that prompt questions in investigators' minds. We get back to that why. Why is this? Why would the president try to potentially obstruct justice and negatively impact our investigation into Russia? Why are his associates and the people around him and the people in his key positions lying about their contacts with Russians? These are very concerning questions and things that need to be investigated.
Director Brennan, you want to take a whack at any of that?
Well, I don't disagree with anything that Andy said. This is a very abnormal situation where you have Donald Trump, as well as those around him, who continue to do things that raise eyebrows among counterintelligence professionals in terms of how he has interacted with Mr. Putin, the types of things that he and others have tried to conceal. What are they hiding? These are the things that raise very appropriate suspicions and concerns. The Russians are very, very capable when it comes to cultivating relationships and getting people to cooperate with them. And again, sometimes it's done in an unwitting fashion, but sometimes they get individuals into compromising situations where they then can intimidate the individual in many respects to help them rather than have something be exposed publicly. And I think that's what Andy was alluding to there. There's a lot that we don't know in terms of what the Russians were able to do and what they've been able to do with U.S. persons.
Final question. At this critical time in this administration and for our country, how alarmed should Americans be if we wake up one of these mornings and Trump has fired Dan Coats, the Director of National Intelligence?
Well, I think we should be very concerned, just like we were very concerned when he fired Jim Comey, and clearly to try to put an end to the Russian investigation. I worked closely with Dan Coats when he was a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He is an individual of integrity as well as of principles and ethics. And that is why Mr. Trump apparently does not like him, because he is not going to give Mr. Trump the loyalty that Mr. Trump expects. And so I do think we see this unraveling of Mr. Trump in terms of what he is doing, trying to take whatever step he can to prevent the truth from coming out, whether it be about this investigation or whether it be about North Korea, Iran, Russia, and other matters. This is something that I think we all should be concerned about. This is a very abnormal situation with a very abnormal individual who is in the Oval Office and who has our prosperity and our security in his hands.
Former CIA Director John Brennan, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir, very much for coming on the broadcast again tonight.